Chapter 18 of My Teacher Glows in the Dark, which is the third book in the four-part series of My Teacher is an Alien by Bruce Coville. This chapter is called Contact with an exclamation mark. So, if you didn't hear the last chapter, go back and listen to it. Let's just get right into it. Chapter 18, Contact. Julian led me into a room filled with all sorts of fascinating equipment. You know, he said as he began tinkering with some machinery. I've spent a good part of my life trying to crack the secrets of telepathy. You mean direct communication from one mind to another? I asked. He nodded. The thing is, he continued, staring at me intently, you've got it. You went into my brain while you were being operated on and pulled out images. Jumbled ones, of course, he added hastily. But you did pull them out of my head. And you did it without training. I think something that happened on the operation table helped unleash the ability in you. He took the skimmel from me and began squishing it back and forth. You can't understand what this means, Crypto, unless you know what we've been trying for lifetimes to create this ability in some of our people. By we, I mean the Interplanetary League. The best we've been able to do so far is piggyback on thought transmission with some of our machines. That's the situation with your friend Duncan, by the way. He's not my friend. I regretted the words the instant they were out of my mouth. They made me sound small and petty. What do you mean, anyway? I asked, trying to cover up my stupid remark. Well, one of the early problems we had with the star travel was that radio messages only move at the speed of light. Of course, this made it almost impossible to communicate between places that were light years apart. We finally managed to invent a hyperspace transmitter, which gave us nearly instant contact between stars. Unfortunately, Brock's home had the only one on your planet, so when he was forced to flee, our remaining agent in Kennetuck Falls, a female named Creeblim, was left without a way to communicate with the ship after it had moved out of our solar system. Your solar system. To get around this, she used a brain enhancer on Duncan. You mean she made him smart? I cried. That explains what I had found when I connected with Duncan on the mothership. No, she didn't make him smart, said Hulan. She simply unleashed some of his basic potential. You humans are so much smarter than you act. It's appalling. Anyway, since thought is instant, by sending her messages through his brain, she is once more able to communicate with us. So what's the big deal about telepathy? Sounds like you already have it. Julian shook his head. No, he said, passing Murgatroyd back to me. It's not the same as direct mind-to-mind communication. That's what I'm after. That's what you managed when you tapped into my head. And when you got through to Duncan Dougal today, before we left the ship, you managed it without the brain treatments and mechanical connections we have to use for such a communication. Only 3 beings on the New Jersey could have made that connection, and each of them has had extensive training and repeated brain stimulation, and has to be in a force field with hardware attached to it. He looked at me. But you did it without even trying. The secret is in there, he said, pointing at my forehead, which he was too short to reach. Just like the reason for Earth's violence. I was sick of everyone thinking I had all the answers. This isn't the Encyclopedia Britannica, you know, I said, tapping my head myself. Though I must admit, I read quite a bit of the EB. Then another thought struck me. You don't want to do more brain surgery on me, do you? I asked, taking a step backward. Hulan took my hand. I just want to see if we can talk to each other, he said, leading me to the machine that looked like I had seen in the communication room on the ship. You stand here, said Hulan, positioning me under a metallic pyramid, and I'll sit over here, where I can get some readings on what's going on inside your head. If you make contact, try using these dials to fine-tune things. If things get too intense, punch the escape button. The whole thing had happened so fast I didn't have time to think about whether or not I wanted to do it. I clutched Murgatroyd, feeling frightened and hopeful at the same time. Hulan turned on the machine and said, Now concentrate. Try to read my mind. I did as he asked. But instead of connecting with Hulan, I found myself back in contact with Duncan. I couldn't believe it. Light years away from Earth, visiting a distant planet, and who do I end up in a psychic link with? Duncan Dougal. I mean, give me a break, folks. Duncan wasn't much happier than I was, though he didn't know I was there yet. Actually, he was feeling something that I had felt more than once since this all started. Unhappiness that other worlds had been watching us as we bumbled along, blowing each other up and starving ourselves when there was enough food for everyone. It's embarrassing, he told himself. It certainly is. I thought at him. This time he heard me. I knew because I was so linked to him that I could tell he wondered if he was losing his mind. Who is that? He thought. Come on, Duncan, don't you know who I am? Peter? He thought in astonishment. Peter Thompson? None other. Wait, let me try something here. I fiddled with the dials Hulan had showed me. Where are you? Asked Duncan. Shh, wait. He was bursting with curiosity, but he waited while I tinkered with the machine, which was a little like adjusting the antenna on a television set. Suddenly I got complete focus. Not only was I inside Duncan's brain, but Duncan was inside my brain. To tell you the truth, I wasn't sure I liked the idea. I mean, in the past about the only way Duncan had communicated with me was through noogies and black eyes. But here we were, worlds apart, linked solely by our minds. So it was pretty exciting, even if it was Duncan. I could hear his thoughts as clearly as he was speaking to me, instead of merely thinking. Where are you? He asked. In space, silly. Where did you expect that would be? Oh, Duncan, it's glorious. The stars. I can't tell you, but it's frightening, too. There's a lot going on. Big things. And Earth is right in the middle of it. We're right in the middle of it. What do you mean? The Interplanetary Council, that sort of a galaxy-wide United Nations, is trying to figure out what to do about us. We've got their tails in a tizzy because our planet is so weird. From what Broxholm has told me. Wait, he replied. Tell me about Broxholm. Is he treating you all right? Well, that's kind of weird too, I said. I'm never quite sure what's going on with him. But listen, I've got to tell you this stuff first because I'm not sure how long I can stay on, and you have to get word out to someone. Here's the deal. The aliens are having a big debate among themselves about how to handle the Earth. And I don't mean just Broxholm's gang. We're talking about hundreds of different planets here. As near as I can make out, they've narrowed it down to 4 basic approaches. One group wants to take over Earth. One group wants to leave us on our own. One group wants to blow the planet to smithereens, and one group wants to set up a blockade. What? They say it's for the sake of the rest of the galaxy. They seem to find us pretty scary, Duncan. I don't get it. Don't ask me to explain how an alien's mind works, I snapped. As far as I can make out, they think there's something wrong with us. Well, 2 things, actually. The first is the way we handle things down there. That's why they've been sending in people like Broxholm. They're supposed to study us and figure out why we act the way we do. So Broxholm was some kind of anthropologist? You could put it that way, I replied. I was astonished Duncan knew that word until I remembered what happened to him. Anyway, the other thing that has them concerned is how smart we could be if we were ever got our act together. Broxholm actually seems jealous. Every once in a while, he goes on about the human brain being the most underused tool in the galaxy. I get the impression they're afraid if we learn to use our full intelligence before we get civilized. We're civilized, cried Duncan in indignation. Not by their standards. Anyway, they're afraid. I didn't finish the sentence. Someone had entered the chamber. I heard a lot of scuffling and squawking. Uh-oh, I said. Something's happening. I gotta go, Duncan. I pushed the escape button, only I wished I hadn't, because the sight that greeted me when I came out of my trance nearly broke my heart. That's the end. Chapter 18. Chapter 19 will be coming soon. Make sure to subscribe and turn on post notifications so that you get notified when I post the new chapters. And you especially want to be notified when I start uploading the next book, which is My Teacher Flunked the Planet. So yeah, hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 200. Let's keep it going. See ya!